What's up, everyone? Jason Gilbo here at JGilbo11, breaking down some GPP bets and some stacking options for Thursday slate. You got 7 games on tap. This is going to be kind of a value considered stacking in GPP pod just because of the pitching that's on the slate. I'm going to be designated to kind of focusing more on the value sense of things. So we'll kind of go game by game here just because it's a small slate. I'm solo, so we'll start with Washington, Atlanta. Do have some rain in the area. This is a spot I think Gio Gonzalez is still expected to make the start. Mike Foltynewicz on the hill there for Atlanta. If in fact Tanner Roark does get pushed back today, that would really put the lefties in play. I talked about the Mets yesterday. They're left-handers against Roark. We look at Roark allowing over a 370 WOBA to lefties. Freeman, Adams, even on Matt Kemp again, I'd be okay with. In Sayarte, Markakis, they make for an intriguing stack even away from home. They'd be in play, but as of now, I'm going to look and see if Gio's starting. I think they'd be more inclined to actually just skip Roark, given how bad he's been. But, for this Mets team, Matt Kemp would be the only one that I'd really consider using. This is a guy who's hit lefties well in his career, has actually had a decent track record against Gio Gonzalez. Kemp 346 WOBA, 194 ISO against lefties this season. You look at Gonzalez, he's had a nice little stretch here, but a 1.43 homers per 9 at righties this year as well. He's about the only one I consider. I'm not looking at a ton of offense in this game. Washington does have over a 5-run total. Brian Goodwin's an intriguing lefties. I'm going to probably use some of the value here, especially the lefty bats, just because Foltynewicz has really struggled. 366 WOBA to lefties. Hard contact rates up as well, 33%. So, I don't mind some of the lefties. You might get a Wilmer Defoe, Steven Drew. You can punt second base or shortstop with. Matt Wieters is a cheap option. And then obviously the lefties here. Brian Goodwin's the cheap outfielder. You do have Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy, who are, high upside plays if you can fit them into your labs. But that's about kind of what you're looking at with this game. Moving down the list, Houston and Toronto, way off on that one. Lance McCullers, Francisco Liriano. I'm just not intrigued with this Toronto side, really. McCullers just rolls a ton of ground balls. Strikeout rate up near 30% against both sides of the plate. It's just a good pass for me. Even some of these prices that are dropped down, Justin Smoke, if he was cheaper, you maybe could look at. Outside that, I just don't like anyone here on the Toronto side. On Houston, though, this is kind of an interesting lineup because you get Francisco Liriano. Yeah, he's been better off at home, but still 370 WOBA to righties this year, 36% hard contact rate. Those are notable numbers. You get some of these big bats here. George Springer very much in play. I think he's my favorite pay up out of Houston. 466 WOBA, 388 ISO against lefties this year. You can always make the case for Jose Altuve, Carlos Correa if he's in the lineup. But I'm going to be heading back to the kind of back at the end of the lineup here. And I like the wraparound stack of like a Marwin Gonzalez, Alex Bregman, Jake Marisnick if he's in the outfield, and like a George Springer. I think it's an intriguing way to go tonight. It's still a way to get Houston exposure without just breaking the bank for their top 3 hitters. You can toss in Gaddis as well. I do think they're all in play. Gaddis over 200 ISO against lefties. Marwin Gonzalez, he's sneaky against lefties, over 200 ISO as well. Alex Bregman hasn't been bad against lefties this year. 370 WOBA, 182 ISO. He's been a little bit sluggish of late, but he's an intriguing value at third base. So Houston's got some options. Like the right-handed bats there, like the potential that they have in that ballpark. Vegas is loving them too. So in play for me. Moving on, Boston Red Sox, Tampa Bay. I don't see a ton of potential here. You look at Faria, this guy is a solid hitter. Once again, he's going to be a guy I like a bit. I'm not going to pick on. He's rolling a ton of ground balls right now, inducing a lot of soft contacts to lefties, to righties. Once again, 251 WOBA allowed. Ground ball rate's pretty high, not allowing a ton of hard contacts. So for me, Boston's offense, you can certainly make the case for some of these guys like Benintendi, JBJ, Mookie Betts as always, but I'm not loving them in tonight's slate, so I'll kind of let others dive down to that Boston range again. And on the Rays side, sorry, I just can't make the case for anyone here. There are some lefty masters. I love Wilson Ramos against lefty. That's just not Chris Sale, though, so I'm just kind of staying away. Padres and Indians next year. Josh Tomlin versus Tyson LeMay. This one's an interesting one, especially on the San Diego side. Tomlin is absolutely awful against righties. He's been bad against lefties too, but targeting against righties, Josh Tomlin, 395 WOBA this year, 17.2% strikeout rate. He's got a swinging strike rate in the sevens against both sides of the plate. 25.5% line drive rate against righties, 37% hard contact rate. The problem is it's the Padres, but you know what? On the small 7-game slate with their value, I'm going to take some of the bats here against Tomlin. Jose Perella, interesting bat. He's been really strong against righties so far. 363 WOBA, 222 ISO in the small sample size. Margot's usually a guy we target against lefties, but I don't mind him at his price. Obviously, his upside is on the base paths as well. Then you get Will Myers, Hunter Renfroe with some upside, over 200 ISO against righties this year. Better ballpark in terms of getting out of Petco. So I like them. Those are probably the only 4 that I would use. Maybe a punt with like Eric Aybar if he's in the lineup or something like that. But outside of that, that's it for me. But they do offer some good value. I'm not opposed to using Myers in cash games as well. But, I'm not opposed actually to a stack either of Perella, Margot, Myers, Renfroe. There is some upside there. On Cleveland's side, Lamet's guy, he just shows off a ton of upside with the strikeout rate. But he is allowing a crazy high hard contact rate. He's not a big ground ball guy like Perdomo was last night. So, I don't mind still Lindor. Lindor is actually not a bad price tag. Jose Ramirez is an interesting GPP guy just because you'd have to pay up to get him. But, once again, I think Lonnie Chisenhall, Bradley Zimmer are guys that are in play. Jason Kipnis has been dealing with an issue with the neck. He was out of tonight's lineup. So Kipnis in play if he's in. Been struggling a little bit, but that price tag's dropped on him. Still over a 5-run total there for Cleveland. Lamet has shown the blow-up opportunity as well, so you can make the stack for Cleveland, but it's not actually an expensive one on DraftKings. Most of those guys are under 4K, and I don't even feel bad about leaving Encarnacion or Ramirez out if you want to just stick with the cheaper guys. So Cleveland's in play there. But also, I wouldn't be surprised to see kind of a lower scoring game. We've been disappointed against this Padres staff with Cleveland bats who have been a little bit sluggish of late. So do note that. Baltimore, Minnesota, Jose Barrios versus Dylan Bundy. On the Baltimore side, I don't really have any interest just because of the fact that there's no real left-handers to target. That's where kind of Barrios has shown a little bit of a soft spot. Seth Smith is that guy, but I just don't feel like using Seth Smith in my lineup. You can make the case for guys like Adam Jones, who's extremely cheap. He's 2.9 on DraftKings. Jonathan Scope, Manny Machado, obviously Mark Trumbo, the power bats that have that one-off potential where, they can go 1 for 4 with the homer and 2 strikeouts, but they're going to be paying off their price tags because they're still cheap. So those are the only guys you can really consider. I probably wouldn't stack it, but I'd probably maybe use them as one-offs or 2-offs. On the Minnesota side, though, this is kind of where I'm drawing some interest. Bundy, 346 WOBA to lefties this year. He's allowing a ton of home runs as well. Look at home runs per 9 to lefties, 1.51 home runs per 9. Hard contact rate up to 40%. So, Robbie Grossman, Max Kepler, I'm a fan of Eduardo Escobar. I don't hate as well. Jason Castro, if he's in the lineup. So, even Brian Dozier, Miguel Sano, he has some upside against Bundy, who's a fly ball pitcher. I like the potential for Minnesota. I know they shut them out earlier this year, but their value sense and the power sense that they bring to the plate, it's good to kind of stack with some of these pitchers going tonight. So I like the options there. Breaking in the 2 late games, I'm expecting a really low-scoring game between the Dodgers and Diamondbacks. Rich Hill taking on Robbie Ray. You can make the case for like an AJ Pollock, who's still pretty cheap. That's about it for me on the Arizona side. I'm not really looking at anyone here. Goldschmidt's too expensive. I'm just not going to go out of my way to pay him in a lineup where I'm still going to be paying for pitching. I'm not going to force him in. So Arizona's kind of a stay away. I'd be more inclined to take on the Dodgers bats like a Logan Forsythe, who's hitting the ball really well against lefties once again. This is what the Dodgers brought him in to do. 456 WOBA, 180 ISO against lefties, 41% line drive rate. Austin Barnes, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor, I don't hate. Justin Turner as well. They're all GPP one-offs, 2-offs at most, just because Robbie Ray is still a really strong pitcher, still really strong on the road. The hard contact rate's the only thing that is up, but he does miss a ton of bats. Home runs, were an issue in the past. They're not as bad this year, but once again, I can see this game being really low scoring, kind of a 2-1, 3-2 game in the end. So you're kind of just hoping for those solo shots to make do there. Oh, in Seattle, you got Sam Gaviglio versus Paul Blackburn. Paul Blackburn, kind of a no-name here in the majors. Showed off a really low strikeout rate down the minors. I'm not concerned. I like the Mariners' bats here. I like some of the price tags. I like Mike Zunino behind the dish. Mitch Haniger, Danny Valencia's hitting over 400 in the last 2 weeks. So he's an intriguing option for a value first baseman. You got Kyle Seager, who's a really nice price down on FanDuel. DK, it's not bad. It's 3.7, but Mariners stack's not that bad. It's a little bit cheaper if you kind of go with some of the other guys that are not named Robinson Cano. Gene Segura is a little pricey. I don't know if I'll be going that way, but I like these guys. I think 1 through 9 they're actually really in play. There's a 5-run total here. Paul Blackburn, like I said, he's just not anything special. On the other side, Gaviglio's a guy, he does roll a decent ground ball rate. He hasn't been bad against lefties, but, the FIP and XFIP, there's regression coming for him. I'm just kind of hoping maybe he can make one more start because SP2-wise, I kind of like using him. He's a reverse splits pitcher from what I've seen so far. Chris Davis would be an exciting GPP play if he was about $1,000 cheaper. I don't know how much he'll be going that way. If he continues to be decent against lefties and kind of bail them out, he'll be okay in this lineup, but there are a lot of left-handers. I don't know if I'll be quite stacking it. Oakland's offense has just been kind of hot and cold. I'll just be kind of staying away from the most part and be more intrigued with Seattle. So that's wrap things up. You can head over to fantasycafe.com, check out our great tools and content.